Hello, my name is Paul King, and I'm going to walk you through the museum's 2014 PCI Compliance Training. This is going to be a review of our PCI Policy 5.5.1. At the end of this review, I would ask that you download the PDF for the signature page, sign it, and return it to my mailbox so we can document that you have completed this training. Let's begin. Over the course of this slideshow, we'll look at all the different factors that we need to cover to make sure you understand our PCI compliance policies. It goes through everything from just the basic guidelines all the way through our need to have a security incident response plan in case there is actually a breach of card holder data here at the museum. There are a lot of details that are involved with our PCI compliance policy, but the big idea that we really want you to take away is that the museum requires the minimal use and storage of cardholder information to continue to be able to accept credit cards and protect ourselves and our customers. Credit card data should never be stored in any information system in the museum for any reason. Credit card data that is recorded on paper is considered confidential and must be protected and destroyed as soon as the transaction is complete. I apologize to you up front for all of the no's that are in this presentation, but just to keep things simple and straightforward, credit card holder information should never be stored on a computer at the museum, and that includes smartphones. It should never be transmitted through instant messaging. It should never be texted. It should never be used in a chat session. It should never be emailed. It should not be stored on a USB drive somewhere or in any electronic document. If in your work environment or anywhere in the museum, if you suspect there has been a breach of cardholder data in any way, that needs to be reported to the head of operations immediately. There is a 24-hour clock essentially that starts ticking as soon as that report is made, and it's important that we know about it quickly to meet those requirements. If you handle credit cards, you should never ask customers for PIN numbers. At the museum, we have no need to use a PIN number. And after a credit card has been authorized, just know that we have no systems that store electronic strip data or CVVs. If you write down credit card numbers on confidential pieces of paper, then they must be shredded immediately when the transaction is complete. And if we store a credit card number archived on a report somewhere or on an application, then it must be masked, and we can only display the first 6 digits or the last 4 digits of that credit card number. On this slide, you see a list of the positions in the museum that we've identified who are authorized to deal with customer credit card data. Administrative staff assistant, communications development associate, the education scheduler and their backups, the finance staff assistant, the front desk supervisor, front desk staff and students, the manager of operations, the store manager, the store staff and students, the special events coordinator, and any special event associates, students, or staff. Anyone else on the museum staff is not authorized to handle customer credit card data, and if there is a transaction that needs to be complete, they need to do it through one of the people in these positions. In the event that you work in an area that has a credit card terminal that has been compromised, then you will be asked to use the manual credit card imprinter instead of your credit card terminal. When that happens, you'll be making paper forms that have people's credit card numbers imprinted on them. Those forms will go in the nightly deposit for your department. As soon as the terminal is working again, those transactions will be processed from the paper through the terminal, and then the paper will be destroyed. In the case of an extended outage, the paper forms will be placed in envelopes marked confidential and stored in the admin safe on the second floor. There are a few ways that we might encounter written credit card information at the museum. It could be face-to-face or over-the-phone interactions. This would be a case where an authorized staff member would write down cardholder data on paper. The paper will be marked confidential. You may record the name as it appears in the card, the address of the customer, the payment amount, the card number, and the CVV, and the expiration date. We've determined that you really should get all of this data because when you manually process the transaction, you want to use all of this data in the reconciliation process. The museum receives a better rate on our transaction fees if you provide complete data. After you've processed the transaction, the paper should immediately be destroyed. If we receive credit card numbers on a fax, a piece of mail, or a member application, those pieces of media should be sealed in an envelope marked confidential. You should record your name on the envelope and the department that you work for. Those envelopes will go in the deposit for your department. When they're picked up, they'll be logged by museum admin staff with your name and the name of the person who received them. In the case of member applications, those forms will wind up being transported to the foundation, and the person who receives the forms at the foundation will sign our log. If you are asked to receive an envelope with credit card data from another museum department, you should expect to have to sign for that envelope. And then once you've received it, you should reconcile the contents of the envelope to make sure that it is correct. It's important that we control the physical access to the credit card terminals. There should always be someone who is authorized to use the credit card terminals present when they are accessible. They should never be left with unauthorized users or the general public. When all authorized users leave a work area that has credit card terminals, those terminals need to be secured. In the case of the gift shop, we lock the doors. In the case of admin offices where we have credit card terminals, we lock the doors. In the case of the front desk, we lock the credit card terminals when the authorized personnel walk away. Video of the credit card terminals should be preserved for 3 months. In your work areas, after a transaction is complete, we can only preserve the first 6 digits or the last 4 digits of a credit card number. Any receipts that we produce out of any systems have to follow the same rule. They can only display either the first 6 or last 4 digits of that account number. And any written copy of credit card data must be shredded in a crosscut shredder immediately once the transaction is complete. Quarterly spot audits will be conducted in the work areas to make sure that customer credit card holder data is not available. This may seem like an odd one, but please remember that visitors to the museum are not allowed to use museum devices or computers or your personal devices as museum staff in order to make a purchase with a credit card. Right? So we cannot take on the liability of them using their credit cards on our systems to purchase something either here or somewhere else. We share our credit card holder data with First Data Merchant Services. They are PCI compliant, and we will not change to another provider unless we are mandated to do so by the Bursar's office. Put simply, mobile devices are never allowed to accept credit card transactions. So when we look at new POS systems or we look at other ways of processing transactions, we do not have the option to use systems that use mobile devices to process credit card transactions. We will maintain our PCI compliance over the next year by continuing to train all new workers that come into the museum on our credit card handling policies. We are also working with CSIRT, the Security Division of OUIT, to protect and to monitor our credit card data network. We've also created a security incident response plan that we will implement should we actually have a credit card data holder breach here at the museum. So that's it. Thank you for sitting through this presentation. If you would download the signature form for PCI compliance, sign it, and turn it into my mailbox, Paul King, I can file that and we can be in compliance for having trained you. Also, if you need any clarification or would like any clarification about these policies, you can just contact me. If you want more detail, you can access the actual policy 5.5.1 on our intranet. So thanks again, and I appreciate your time.